עזרי מעם אדוני, עושה שמיים וארץ, אל יתן למוט רגליך, אל ינום שומרך, הנה לא ינום ולא יישן שומר ישראל, אדוני שומרך, אדוני צילך. Lost it? על יד ימינך, יומם השמש לא יככה, וירח בלילה, אדוני ישמוך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך, אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם, מעתה ועד עולם. I would like to sing it more and more, but somehow this technology is eluded. Everybody sees it now, right? Yeah. So you can try to join me. Let's see until the words disappear again. Shir ma'alo Esa einai ele arim, me'ain yavo ezri, ezri me'im Adonai, ose shamayim va'aretz, al yiten lamot raglecha, al yanum shomrecha, hine lo yanum velo yishan shomer Israel, Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha, tzilcha. Al yad yeminecha, yomam hashemesh lo yakeka, veyareach balayla, Adonai yishmocha mikol ra, yishmor et nafshecha, Adonai yishmor tzedcha uvoecha, מעתה ועד עולם, מעתה ועד עולם. The second thing that I would like us to do, and amidst the technical difficulties, never mind, there are worse problems in the world, is that I would like to say the blessing for studying Torah together. And I would actually like to dedicate this class to the memory of Jeff Wicks, who passed away, and his funeral was today. He was a lovely, lovely person. Some of you knew him. And I had the honor to know him a little bit in the past few months when I would visit him at the Jewish home. And I wish he could be here with us. You know, he was a cool guy. He was a guitar player as well. And I just want to dedicate tonight's class to his memory, to his honor, to the beautiful soul that he was and possibly still is somewhere. So I'm going to light those candles and we'll say our blessing. May his memory be a blessing. And I invite us to say the blessing for studying Torah together. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו לעסוק בדברי Torah. Okay. So Zoom people, you're still with us somewhere in the world? You are, that's good.
Yep.
Yes, we're here.
Okay, good.
Here.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for your so our journey begins actually with Jacob. So Jacob, are the Zoom people seeing the slide that says Parashat Vayetze?
No,
No.
You're not.
no.
No.
Okay. All right. We're going to share the screen again and see what happens. How about if I do it this way? Do you see anything at all now, Zoom people?
The song.
You see the song. Yeah, that's what I figured. And now if I share this with you, window, do you see the Jacob story?
Yes.
You guys,
Yeah.
you see it.
Yes.
Yes.
You see it, but the people here in the room, they still see the psalm.
Yeah.
That's very discouraging.
Oh,
Let me turn this off. Oops. Still no. There you go. All right, let's see what happens. All right. I'm going to have that figured out afterwards for the next class, what happened. So our patriarch Jacob, this is going to be the key for entering into the Pardes, into the mystery. And it's going to take us maybe more than 1 week to get to the butt of it. Okay, so we're going to have to go step by step. This week, this series begins with a journey of Jacob. It's a very famous one. Jacob left Beersheba and went to Haran. Anyone here ever heard the story before?
no.
Okay, that's very, very, very legitimate. Jacob left Beersheba and went to Haran. The continuation of the story is very famous because on the way, he goes to sleep in the field. And all of a sudden, he has a very, very important dream that becomes, one of the main images from Genesis, which is Jacob's ladder. All right, Jacob's ladder. Jacob left Beersheba and went to Haran. He came upon the place, and he spent the night there because the sun had set. He took some stones from that place and placed them around his body and head, and then laid down in that place to sleep. He had a dream. He beheld a ladder standing firmly on the ground and sloping upward. It stopped, reaching up towards heaven. Angels of God were ascending it and descending it. And behold, God was standing over him. He said, I am God, God of Abraham, your forebear, and God of Isaac. I will give the land upon which you are lying to you and your descendants. It did change, right? I'm like small
Yes.
right now. I have anxiety now. Your descendants will be as numerous as the dust of the earth, and you will be spread out powerfully to the west, even to Rochester, to the east, to the north, and to the south, and all the families on earth will be blessed through you and through your descendants. Behold, I am with you. I will protect you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land, for I will not neglect you until I have fulfilled what I have promised Abraham concerning you. Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, God is truly present in this place. Yes, yet I was not aware of it. He became afraid and said, how awesome is this place! This is none other than Mount Moriah, the future site of the house of God. And thus, this is the gateway through which prayer ascends to heaven. Okay?
Yes.
Jacob rose early in the morning, took the stone that he had placed under his head, and set it up as a monument. He then poured oil on the top of it, consecrated on an altar. He named that place Bethel, which is why half the congregations in the world who are not called Temple Sinai or Temple Emmanuel are called Bethel, because everybody wants to be that place, right? And House of God, Bethel, although the original name of that town was Luz, right? Etc., etc. So, very famous story. The ladder, angels going up and down, ladder connecting heaven and earth, right? A big prophecy, a big promise, a big vision to one young man called Jacob. Going back to the beginning, and you know, when who here comes to Torah study on Saturday mornings? As you know, in Torah study, we study very slowly, right? And we're just like the Kabbalists, because also they would start from the first verse of the story and study it very slowly. Many people would brush off and rush through the first verse because the main point is Jacob's ladder. But the Kabbalists like to read every little word and even you'll see soon, every letter and syllable of the Bible. Because why? Because as we've seen in the previous semester, it is revelation. God's word is revelation. Therefore, everything is important in it. Right? Just like in Torah study, we go to every little thing and discuss it, right? It's the revelation. We want to learn it. So the first verse, verse 10, Jacob left Beersheba and went to Haran. Could be, okay, whatever. It's like, who cares exactly? This is like the beginning. It's not important details, but the Kabbalists are going to take a close look at it. Because for the Kabbalists, the journeys of the ancestors and the characters in the Bible are not just a history of something that maybe happened many years ago. For them, it is a revelation that has to be relevant to every person who reads it, right? There has to be something for it in us and for us. So they look closely and they say, when Jacob walks and wanders, it's each and every one of us that walks and wanders on the face of this earth. Okay? And therefore, what might it mean that he left Be'er Sheva and went to Haran? So let's try to see. First of all, when Jacob left in this, who remembers? Why did he leave home? You were, some of you might have been alive back. No, just kidding. You don't remember what happened? What
With
happened?
Esau.
What's that, Herb?
He was running from Esau because
He
he stole
was
Esau.
correct. Thank you, Herb. He was running.
I was
away.
there.
Yes, Herb. Yes, it was in Brooklyn, right, Herb?
I was in Brooklyn.
So Jacob was running away from home. He messed up. He cheated his brother. He cheated his father. He was very young. He had nothing, right? And he was running away from home. He had not yet created his future family and his future home, which would be no less, just as messy, right? Because Lavan and Rachel and Leah and all those characters and all the mishaps that happened to him. But right now, Jacob is in this like liminal period in his life. He has run away from home, can't go back. He did not yet create his future mess of his adult life. He's in between. All right? Interesting place to be in life, kind of. Any one of you ever been in such a stage in life? You have? I was in California back then. I was living in a car. I was working in a little factory that made ocarinas, little flutes of clay. and head massages. That was a time in my life when I was in between things, right? So, that happens sometimes to some of us. So that's also to keep in the back of our minds. What is, and you'll see that this is relevant to the continuation of the riddle that is being, we're only in the exposition part now. It's going to take us a few weeks to get to the butt of it. Maybe next week, maybe the week after. Well, let's see. Another thing, what is the meaning of Be'er Sheva? He left Be'er Sheva. Where's Be'er Sheva? In the desert. Anyone ever been to Be'er Sheva, Israel? Wonderful time. It's a little bit like Paris, only without the glamour and the culture and the food and the Be'er Sheva, lovely city. I used to work there. Very dusty place. Nice town. Okay, in the middle of the desert. And he went to Haran. Where is Haran? Mesopotamia. Why is he going back there? Because that's where his family, right? Abraham's family came from those areas. His Rebecca, all those people, they're not from Canaan, right? They immigrate to Canaan, and he's going back. He was sent by his mother back to her tribe, right? So that's a geographical journey. But again, the Kabbalists, and you'll see not even the Kabbalists, the rabbis, people who've read the story, they didn't care much for the actual physical geographical locations. Because once again, Jacob's journey is our journey. And it's everybody's journey who's reading this Bible. Could be Jacob's journey. And therefore, Be'er Sheva and Haran can be anywhere. They can be in Rochester. They can be in Brooklyn. They can be in Mesopotamia. They can be in India.
What is Mesopotamia?
It's like the Middle East there. So basically, where was Haran? I think it was somewhere between Syria and Iraq, somewhere. All right. So they're walking around the Middle East, right? Wandering from there to Canaan and back. That's kind of like where they're going. So, however, something that we will have to read about later on. There's also meanings to those names. What is Be'er Sheva? What is Be'er? Anyone knows? Yes, Pauline knows. Be'er is a well. A well, because if you're in the desert, you need to dig wells. And what is Sheva? A little, well, Shev, the Shevet, good. I'm like seeing that there's some Hebrew in the room. What is Sheva? What's that? So it's the number 7, which is relevant. Everything in Kabbalah always has to do with the number 7. Don't ask me how, don't ask me why. You'll see later that Sheva is relevant. But Sheva also means another thing, Sova. Does anyone know what that means in Hebrew? Abundance. To be Sova means abundance. So Be'er Sheva is the well of abundance. It's like, imagine that it was an oasis in the olden days. There was a lot of, you could drink water and it would be like, so the well of abundance, a place of abundance. So he left a place of abundance, of being well fed, and he went to Haran. And interestingly enough, Haran in Hebrew also means a place of hardship, a place of lack, a place of conflict. So Jacob went from Be'er Sheva, from a place of abundance, to a place of Haran, to a place of conflict, lack, anguish. Has any one of you ever traveled between a place of abundance and a place of anguish? A place of wellness to a place of conflict and trouble? Or vice versa? Raise your hand if you haven't in your life at all, ever traveled between states of being. All right? So keep it on, so we will see that a lot of people in our tradition, we're not reading this literally as, oh, it's a geographical location and a historical Jacob, but as human journeys between states of minds, abundance, lack, wellness, anguish. Jacob is on that spectrum, as he was all his life, and all as are all of us, right? You humans. Again, the Kabbalists and the rabbis look at this as revelation. It's not about history. You can read it as history, but that's another class. Okay? All right. Can we go forward? Can we go forward?
Yes.
All right. Very well. So now I wanted to take you from the biblical level of the text to another level, which is not yet the Kabbalistic esoteric level. It's the rabbinic level of interpretation. The rabbinic level of interpretation, what we call the midrash. Anyone ever heard this word before, midrash? Right? Midrash is the creative literature of the rabbis. So when the rabbis write, typically you divide their literature into two parts. One is more halacha, which is the laws, the rules, do's, don't do's. And then there's midrash and agadah, which is more the fairy tales, right? The wisdom, the stories, the things that are not linear law. It's just the different things that we want to tell about things, right? So an interesting midrash about our little story about Jacob walking around and having the dream, right? And that journey that he made before and after, when he was running away from home, and all that we said before. In Bereshit Rabbah, which is a compilation of somebody who's on mute, is on Zoom, should put themselves on mute. Also on mute. What is mute? I don't know. But, right? I don't really have access to all those screens right now. Bereshit Rabbah. Bereshit Rabbah is a compilation of midrashim, dating about maybe 2,000 years back, more or less, maybe 1800 years ago, around Second Temple area, first centuries, kind of like to Common Era. Okay. And then Rabbi Nachman, not Rabbi Nachman of Breslau, that much more ancient Rabbi Nachman, opened his interpretations with Psalm 121 that we just sang. How did Nachman, Rabbi Nachman, 2,000 years ago, know that 2,000 years later we'll be sitting here in Rochester singing that psalm? He did not. He did not know that. Just checking if you're awake. He had no idea about America in general. Okay, he was sitting in the land of Israel somewhere, and he was reading the Bible, and he was making creative interpretations. Yet we miraculously opened this class with a lot of technical difficulties, but also with singing Psalm 121. Shir lamalot. Remember? Esaina el heharim. Me'ayin yavo ezri. We just sang that twice. And nobody could see the lyrics. It was a whole catastrophe. But nonetheless, we sang it. And Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachman, 2,000 years ago, he also knows this psalm. And he opened and said, I shall lift up my eyes to the mountains. From where does my help come? Very famous psalm. So we sang it we sang it at the funeral, at the service, right? About a week ago, right? We sang it. It's often it's sung in funerals. And it's a very famous one. When I was singing ancient Christian music, I sang this in Latin. Everyone composed that one because it's very basic religious sentiment. Anyone here likes to go to the mountains sometimes and look at them, or to live in them, or to go to Hawaii and see the mountains, or to go to, I don't know what, the Rockies or wherever it is that you go. I used to live in the Galilee, so I would live. People like to go to mountains and they get inspired, right? It's a very simple, basic, spiritual, but also psychological awe. People usually on vacation, they either go to mountains or they go to the sea, right? That's why. And anyone ever ask yourself why? Right? There's something about going to the mountains, right? And by the way, a quick server, are you more like a mountain person or a beach person? Beach? Anyone is a mountain person? Right? So there's, are you, who's both? You can have it all. You You go to Hawaii, there's a beach and a mountain, right, Leah? Came back with a tan, right? There you go. So there's others about the sea. We can get to, so there's many songs about the sea as well. But all right, but we're going. So I shall lift up. So I remember in Latin it's levavi oculos, levavi. I'll elevate oculos meos, mine il montes. That's Latin. Why do I know it? Because I used to sing it. Levavi oculos meos il mo. Yeah. And then the other voice comes in. You know how those are, I used to sing those. So that's why am I singing that? Just to show off my Latin, which is very basic, limited to that, because I used to sing it. Why? Because Jewish people sang this song. Christian people sang this psalm. Millions of people were inspired by Psalm 121 for centuries and more. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Sometimes it's mistranslated to the heavens. No, not to the heavens. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. From where does my help come? Who said this psalm? Asked Nachman 2,000 years ago. Jacob did. Now that's a problem, because according to tradition, who wrote the Psalms? King David. How come then, King David lived many, many, many years after Jacob? How can Rabbi Nachman then claim that Jacob sang the psalm? Well, see, because he's creative. He doesn't care. This is not a history class. Right? In Jewish tradition, you can, whatever. It's not about time. He wants to say this psalm has to do with Jacob. And we don't even know scientifically that David did write. It's also a tradition. It's like, right, who wrote Psalms? Rabbi Nachman wants to say Jacob sang it. When did he sing it? Guess when? At the time that he ran away from home.
When he needed help.
When he was all alone. He could not go back home to his original nuclear family. He had not yet met all his wives and whatever concubines and all those troubles, but he had not yet created his rather convoluted future home. He was all alone in the valley in Judea near Bethel, the original one, and he was looking at the mountains and saying, "Oh my God, it's getting dark and I have nothing." And he sang that psalm. And look what Rabbi Nachman says. He says that Jacob said, "Where shall my help come from? For when Eliezer went down that same way to bring Rebekah, his mother, what is written about him? And the servant took 10 camels, etc., many golds, and he went, that story, Eliezer, the slave of Abraham, he took a whole bunch of stuff to bring as what's that word? Dowry, thank you. To impress, the family, so that we were so wealthy as dowry. So the slave went with lots of stuff. Right? And it's juxtaposed to Jacob going the same way, the same pathway, having nothing and nothing and nothing, right? But to me, not even a nose ring or a bracelet, said Jacob, allegedly, according to Rabbi Nachman.
It sounded like Rabbi Nachman was saying.
Right, but he's talking as if he's Jacob. You have to see those are written a bit like a riddle. Rabbi Nachman didn't go to those places. Maybe he did. He's saying that Jacob sang, all right, but then you see, and this is something that I often teach in bar mitzvahs, throughout the ceremony sometimes, bar bat mitzvahs or bnei mitzvahs, that he said, Shir LaMa'alot, a song of the ascent. I shall raise up my eyes to the mountains. I shall look at the mountains. Follow the Hebrew a little bit here. You see it's in orange. Harim. How do we say mountain in Hebrew? Har. Ha, hey, resh. And the plural word of it is harim. All right, like yelad, yeladim, whatever, right? A sign, I shall lift up my eyes to the mountains. A sign, he harim. But because Hebrew, Hebrew without, if you change the vowels, the word harim looks a lot like Isainail ha horim. Does anyone know what horim is? I'll give you a hint. Those who visited me for 10 days now are my horim, parents. Horim is parents. Harim is mountains, and horim happens to be parents. So Rabbi Nachman is playing with the similarity between these two words. Harim, mountains. Horim, parents. In other words, Jacob's there, he's all alone. He looks to the outside world, to the physical world around him, asking for help. Mountains, help me. Did the mountains help him? How could they help him? They're mountains. He's just a person all alone in the field, and it's getting dark, and he's scared. So he says, Esainail hahorim. I lift up my eyes inwardly to my parents. Where's Sigmund Freud?
Yeah, really.
Right? I looked at my own psyche, my own psychology. Also, the thing that I'm leaving, I left home. I had messy childhood, whatever. My brother, blah, blah, blah. I lift up my eyes to my parents who are not, of course, they're not there. His horim. And I'm asking, Mom, Dad. Imagine a big field in Judea. Dad, Dad, Dad. No one answers. Who's going to help? Ima, Abba, Ima, Mom, Dad. Harim, mountains. Horim, parents. I look outside to the external physical world. I look inwards to my, emotional, psyche, internal psychological world, seeking help. Who's going to help poor little Jacob, who was composing psalms, allegedly, according to Rabbi Nachman? Okay, we already have an embedded reality here. We have Jacob. We have Rabbi Nachman. We have the mountains. We have the parents. Who's going to help Jacob? Well, who helped Jacob in the end? And why didn't Eliezer, the slave, have the same revelation and the same dream with Jacob's? Why isn't it called Eliezer's ladder? What is the difference between the same guy, another guy a generation ago went the same way, went through the same highway? You go through Binghamton, and then you go, then Pennsylvania, whatever, the same highway, right? What's the difference? What's between Eliezer doing that trip, making that trip, and Jacob making that trip? Yeah.
Eliezer doesn't have the birthright that Jacob has.
Or does it belong to the tribe, maybe?
But also, Jacob doesn't have anything. And Eliezer had
Lots of stuff.
lots of stuff.
Right, today, one of the most fascinating things is when you have Hebrew school, and you're the rabbi of this place, and then you go into the parents' lounge. During Hebrew school, you meet the parents, and they all with their laptops working, or pretending to work. I don't know if they're really working, or seldom they are chatting. And then you start talking to them, and then we realize that all of them and us. I mean, I shouldn't speak. I'm there. I'm working. Right? It's my job to be there, and everybody's talking. Oh, we have to make money. We have to earn money. We have to. It's like 5 p.m. Why are you working? Oh, because I'm also working. I shouldn't speak, right? So maybe they're a little bit like Eliezer, or we are, right? In other words, Eliezer had a lot of stuff, camels, jewelry. He was on a mission. He was a slave. He was walking, to fulfill his master's demand. Abraham, he was in a job, and Jacob had nothing. And which is actually what Rabbi Nachman is saying. Because the word ayin, me'ayin yavo ezri. You see that one? See that line in the middle here? Right here. See it? From where does my help come? Me'ain. Me'ain is in Hebrew. In Hebrew, you say me'efo, but in more ancient Hebrew, say me'ain. From where shall my ezri, my help, come? But it so happens that the word ayin in Hebrew means, anyone knows?
Nothing.
Nothing. Ayin. Ayin. Ein. Can I have some cake? Efshar uga? Lo. En uga. There's no more cake. So you see, what Rabbi Nachman is actually saying is that Jacob has turned the question into an answer. And he asked, Me'ain yavo ezri? Where will my help come from? And the answer was within the question. Me'ayin, from nothingness, my help will come. Right? This only, it's lost in translation. You got to follow the thing. You see what it is? Some of those language games, that's why Hebrew is a rich language. That's why it's worth it to learn it.
He had to hit rock bottom, so he slept on rocks.
He literally hit rock bottom, right? So when he realized that the world around him will not help him, and that his parents, even that he was having imaginary conversation with in his heart and his mind, also can't help him, and he echoed that question in the empty valley, and he realized that he was completely alone and completely with no possessions. He had just his, years later, he comes back to the same place and he tells God, I only had my rod, my stick, and my sack. That's it. That's all I had. Like, I was a vagabond.
Is it really in Hebrew translated a newsroom?
Yeah, Nezem. Oh, they had many of those back in the day.
Yeah.
That was a very good dowry.
It's
Like,
not brand new then, the thought, young people.
oh, young people wear, but also our ancestors, Rebecca had like huge nose rings like this. I saw the photo once. Beautiful nose ring. She had a beautiful nose too, by the way. And the nose ring only made it more beautiful. Yeah. So okay. So we kind of see here that this is even pre-Kabbalah. We haven't even gotten to Kabbalah yet. This is only kind of like telling you it's going to take us a while, but we already understand that what we're talking about is not, history, this and that. It's not about the land of Israel, the physical one. It's actually about journeys that we all make. And Jacob and Rabbi Nachman teaches us. Harim, Horim, I can look outside, I can look inside. The path to the revelation of Jacob's ladder, which is another kind of like a portal that opens, right? A connection between the human and the divine is made possible in that moment of rock bottom, of getting a connection to ayin, to nothingness. Okay?
Sounds very Buddhist.
I know, but it also sounds very Jewish, because you see, this is 2,000 years ago. Buddha was the same time of Buddha, more or less, by the way.
Different place.
But so these kind of realizations were happening 2,000 years ago. People were kind of like getting it across the board. So again, part of our project here at ROSH-ESTHER is to remind ourselves that our tradition, Judaism, is maybe a lot about those kind of teachings, right? And we've only begun, all right? So nothingness, ayin, right, is what allowed Jacob to develop this ability to dream about God and know that there's a connection, and have the angel have basically get this vision. It was like ever heard of the Native Americans, the people who go to the wilderness and they have a vision quest and they fast for, I had friends in Israel who would do that. They would go to the desert and they would, not eat for like 2 weeks, and all of a sudden, lo and behold, they start hallucinating, right? But they get a vision in nature. So it's not just Buddhist and Jewish. It's also shamanic and native. It's in many cultures of kind of like getting to the state where you get a vision and you get a prophecy and you get a connection, a spiritual connection from actually not acquiring things. Very, I don't know, like America is like a little bit the opposite, right? In a sense, like a lot of shopping around, right? Not a great thing, but maybe not the best way if you want to get like a shamanic vision, right? So me'ayin. Now look see something interesting here. Many a good people have realized, and to see that this is really embedded in Hebrew language, that miraculously so, the word ayin in Hebrew, which means nothingness, has the same letters in it as the word ani, which is actually I or me. In Hebrew, the word I and the word me are the same word, ani, which is why Israelis like me often would mix I and me. Right? Like, should I say my wife and I, or my wife and me? Like I think about it for half an hour, right? So there's only one word, I and me. Okay? And it's kind of cool, right, to notice that it's kind of like the same word. Because I am not nothing. I am somebody. I am me, right? Yet I am also, you see what I mean? So that idea that I come from nothing and eventually will become nothing, right? But maybe also in order to kind of like, go along lines the spiritual path of Jacob, who all of a sudden has a connection, right? I have to practice being both ani, being me or I, but also being ayin, being nothing at the same time. Right? Here, I think, so we have to thank our friend Hannah, who made us an animation. See ani? Oops, didn't work. Ayin, nothing. Ani. She even put the I there. Right? By the way, the word, the word, if you want to get Kabbalistic in English, the word I is also very Kabbalistic because it looks like a person. Mm-hmm. Or if you wish, it's a person and God hovering above, and there's like a gap. See, like if you wish, Jacob's ladder is between the line and the dot. See what I mean? It's like if you want to get Kabbalistic in English, we can. That I never heard before in any of the books. They were not written in English, right? But it's interesting. So it's interesting to know that a contemporary Israeli band from the 90s called Shotei HaNevuah, the Fools of Prophecy. There's a saying that prophecy was only given to fools. You know that prophecy? You know that sentence? In Israel, whenever someone, they're interviewing some general or somebody about how long will the war in Gaza take place, or how long will Benjamin Netanyahu stay in power, and he wants to say, like, I don't know. He said, "Hanevuah nitna leshotim." Prophecy is given to fools. In other words, don't prophesy. Don't prophesy. Only fools prophesy. So there was a band in the 90s and early 2000s who called themselves the Fools of Prophecy. I guess you have to be an Israeli to get the pun, but now you know it too. And lo and behold, interestingly enough, they composed a song called Ein Ani. There is no me. All right? The words are, Ken eize kef yeh besof yamai, כשכל החבר'ה ידברו עליי, יגידו שהייתי עיני, בשעות רצון ובשעות הפנאי. Yeah, what fun it'll be at the end of my life. Speaking of funerals. When all the guys will talk about me, they will say that I was I, which is borrowed from the Rastafarian culture, if you know what that is. when God was listening and in leisure times, כשמישהו יגיד דבר אחר אני פשוט אעוף בלי לדבר ואתפזר בשקט בחלל ללא רגשות אשם ובלי אבל. When someone will say something else, I would simply fly without speaking and quietly dissipate into thin air, just imagining his own death, right? Guilt-free and without arguing, with no buts, we aval, if you know what that is. And what is the chorus of the song? Which, Einani, 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 Einani. Taking the Einani, there is no I, there is no I, there is no I, there is no I. Right? So they took that, and they were, believe me, they were influenced by Buddhism and by Kabbalah. And in fact, one of their members of that band passed away last week by coincidence. So maybe now he is that. Einani, the paradox of, right? Want to hear the song?
Yes.
All right, let's see. Hopefully, let's see if it works.
It's them singing it.
Yeah, not me.
Ring, make it ring, girl, make it.
That's a commercial.
Apartment 2B.
2B. She's definitely using
Skip.
that.
This is the song Einani by the Fools of Prophecy. Very Buddhist, right? Einani. Nice song, right? You hear the Indian influence? All right. I will dissipate quietly into space. He's imagining his own death, okay? They are. Etc. Okay?
Do you think young Israelis got that or made that connection?
Young Israelis are not stupid. Well, some of them are.
Well, I mean,
And those, by the way, the young Israelis that heard it in the 90s, they're not that young anymore. I was one of them. I'm not that old, but I'm not that young. Well,
they learn it, you know.
So here you go. There are levels to this. Okay? A lot of people got the pun Einani. And Shotei Nevuah, and they, by the way, that's not the only song that they wrote, the popular, and they're very popular. And one of them who left the band, Avraham Tal, has become one of the biggest rock stars. They were together for a band, what happens often is that they split, and one of them, Avraham Tal, became one of the biggest rock stars in Israeli history. He's huge in Israel. Avraham Tal has amazing music, by the way. And they by the way, they were learned in Kabbalah. He wrote a song called Kol Galgal. Actually, they did as a band. Kol Galgal, the voice of the wheel. Beautiful song. Look it up. So Israelis get the pun Einani, and it's kind of a it's Einani. So they get it. Do they know all the midrashim and that it's about Jacob and the people who wrote it? Believe me, they've studied. They might, they're musicians, but they also went and studied, and they also went to India, like a lot of young Israelis, and learned Buddhism, and they came back and started to get interested in Jewish spirituality. And someone taught them, hey, that there's a source about Rabbi Nachman teaching that this and that, and me'ain, ain, and ein ani. Right? They probably, I would guess that they knew it. How many of their listeners and fans knew the entire spiel? But it's a gate, then they can start getting interested in it, and then they can learn, right? And they can get, all right. But regardless, all of us now, we know that in Hebrew, the word ani and the word ayin are interrelated, and there's a 2,000-year wisdom that goes along this pun. Okay, that the eye is formed from nothingness and eventually dissipates into nothingness. Either we talk about that, when we're born from, our soul comes from somewhere, and then we're alive, and then after like a few decades, we die. Right? But there's more than one way to look at it, right? In Buddhism, it's not just about life and death. It's about transitioning our consciousness, or being aware that even throughout life, every day and every breath, we can kind of be aware of the nothingness that hides, within the eye, the sense of reality and existence, right? And we have about 10 more minutes to kind of like open it for like discussions and comments, either from the room or from Zoom. And I just want to summarize this kind of like beginning of our journey to say that this is only the exposition. In other words, the Kabbalists, when we're going to get to the Zohar, maybe next week or the next week after, probably by next week already, all of that should already be in the back of our minds, because the Kabbalists, this is just they take it from there. Until now, it's like common knowledge in Jewish kind of like, if you know Bible, if you know Midrash, if you know culture, if you know, so that would be something that you would know. And now we're ready to start entering Kabbalah, based on the fact that we know that this is Jacob, but that we are Jacob, that he's going from a place of abundance to a place of of anguish, or vice versa, whatever, and that then he has a vision, and that it has to do with the Song of the Ascents. He looks at the mountains, he looks inside. He said, world, parents, who can help me? No one can help me. I'm alone. I'm just here in the field. And he goes to sleep, and he has the most amazing vision that basically tells him that he's going to be an ancestor of an amazing nation of which we all are part, including the Christians and maybe some others as well. Right? We're all descendants of that spiritual tradition. And that spiritual development has to do with ein ani, the emptiness. In Sanskrit, it's called shunyata, if you know, emptiness, right? The ability to connect to emptiness, to nothingness, while still being alive and living fully. All right. Any questions, comments, complaints, suggestions for improvement, letters to the editor? Yeah, go ahead.
I have this notebook that I keep, and just this afternoon, I wrote down, and I copied it from some other writer, and it seems related. You can only get to the divine by subtraction, not addition.
Who's that writer?
Well, you're getting, if there's no I.
You can only get to the divine by subtraction, not addition. There you go. Compare and contrast.
It sounds like this.
Yeah, I think it resonates. Thank you. It's good that you have that notebook with you.
Just this afternoon, I wrote it.
Any more things to share, to ask, to comment? From dust I came, and from dust I shall return. All right, so some perspective here. Dust, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, right? Very becoming in a day that we've had a funeral, in a week that we've had a few funerals here at Temple Sinai. I keep saying we have too many funerals. What about some weddings and brisses and baby namings? They're coming. Okay, I'm still. Oh, so meanwhile, I don't know. It's not balanced enough. Yeah. Any more things to say to us?
So in German, eins with an S is one.
Mm.
So
There you go. Now we're bringing the Yiddish into it, right?
I don't know Yiddish. I don't know where that came. That just came to me, but I don't. You know, it might be nothing, but it might be everything.
So keep that thought. So herzlichen Dank for die deutsche, right? So we have. So now how do we know that we're getting to the Kabbalistic mode? Because everything starts to echo, right? Associations, and since we're not just versed in Hebrew, maybe we speak English, maybe we speak German. Keep that thought, because the meaning of one, the letter one, of the number one, is going to become relevant to us as we dive deeper into the secrets of Kabbalah regarding the teaching of Ein Ani, of I am nothing, or nothingness that becomes existence. So who knows? Maybe the ancient Germans also had some knowledge, ancient Kabbalistic knowledge, right? It is a Hindu-European language after all, German, right? The roots of which are in somewhere in India. Anyone else?
Well,
Yeah, one and two, yeah.
What kind of questions are you opening? Coincidences or meaningful?
I'm opening up to whatever you want to ask. I don't decide the questions.
Okay, I heard something that I thought was interesting today. You were talking about funerals, Jimmy Carter's funeral. Peter Yarrow
Oh, yeah.
passed away, and the connection that I was making is that Jimmy Carter pardoned Peter Yarrow. That he was leaving.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like some kind of a connection. I thought
It is. I'm
So-
proud of it. Don't you think
Hmm.
we're open?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
What else? What else do you want to? What else? What do you see in this text or in these texts? Or yes.
it just struck me that, like in the greatest despair, in the greatest nothingness is the greatest hope. And that there's a certain amount of comfort in that.
Possibly, yet we have to kind of ask ourselves if despair and nothingness are the same thing. Because, and I'm not saying that one way to look at it is that the I, and I was kind of talking about this a little bit, like when the Jacob had nothing, in the sense that he lost all, he was in a low place in his life, right? As we go further into this, a nuance to think about. Being in desperation is still having something. What do you have when you're in despair? Despair, right? When I said I'm in despair, then I'm in despair, right? Some people, it can be addictive, by the way. Some people can, by the way, it's almost all people. We all have some kind of a despair that we're a little bit addicted to, or more. You see what I mean? Like despair can be nothing, but it could also be something that we have, right? So as we go, so this is, now it starts to get interesting. What kind of nothing are we talking about? And does that equal being at a low point or a high point or whatever? Or is it something else that we're talking about? Or in addition? So thank you for bringing that up, but let's keep that thought of that nuance. Yes?
Yes, well, nothing doesn't have to be emptiness in the sense of despair. It can be an empty vessel ready to accept.
Mm-hmm. Because you're right. So what you're saying comes together to the fact that we have a lot of preconception, and we have, so emptiness, usually the connotation that we have is bad. Oh I feel empty.
We empty
Right.
our minds to
Right. So so maybe I'll go shopping today because I feel bad. So I'll have something, right? Or, oh, my gas tank is empty. I need to, right? So or I feel empty, I'm tired, I'm empty, right? Or am I emotionally empty, drained, right? But what you're telling us is that there's all kinds of empty, right? That there could be negative empty, like despair, which, and then Susan will say, maybe despair is actually sometimes a good thing because, maybe that possibly, but maybe there's also a kind of emptiness that is actually a good thing because it's like it's something that allows us to evolve.
How do you get to empty without traveling through despair? Or can you do it? Can you?
It's a koan.
I don't. What's that?
It's like a koan, like what you just said.
Mhm.
I don't know what.
Oh, like a question that you just sort of meditate on that really has no
Mhm.
answer.
Yeah. So, right. So the conversation that we're starting to now have together, right, that's a good beginning for our journey for the next 9 sessions. Well, 8 sessions, because this one is about to be over in a minute. Subtraction, not addition, right? Is because you see, this is what we're doing. We're kind of like delving into, like, we're spending our Wednesday evening. This is evening now, right? Instead of like doing a lot of other things we could have been doing, going to a restaurant, watching TV, going to the concert, whatever, driving in the snow. I don't know what you like to do at 7, 8 p.m. We're coming here and we connect to old, thousands years old traditions of Judaism, right? Not just because it's entertaining, hopefully, maybe, I don't know how entertaining it is, but because we are then trying to echo it with our own reality and our own psyche and our own life and our own journey. And we're giving a certain language that can also become our common language. Before today, we weren't speaking at Temple Sinai in the terms of Ein Ani, existence and nothingness, being and dissipating, right? We were not aware of that. Maybe some of us were, of Ein Ani and how it's related to, and now we're starting to build, a language together, right? A vocabulary that allows us to start talking about the nuances. Is there more than one way of emptiness? How do we reach that? What is the place of low points and despair in that journey? And actually, is there a way to avoid it? There may be more than one way. What is it exactly? And then also we understand that Kabbalah is applied. All right? It's as if it's in the disguise of being a theology and Torah discussions and word games in Hebrew and fairy tales about Jacob and David and Rabbi Nachman and Eliezer. Then we start to get to the level that is what we came here to do in ROSH-ESTHER, right? Which is to take these ancient materials and start to work with them and see if they can be applied to our own journeys, and to be helpful to us also in communicating and sharing these journeys and this life wisdom that we accumulatively have in the room here. Because if you take all our ages together, we'll probably reach like 1,000 years or more, right? Right. So no, but you see, but each one of us is young, but together we're very old, right? All right. So anyone at the Zoom before because we kind of like we're over time now. We need to wrap it up in a minute or two. Anyone on Zoom that wants to say something?
Yeah, I'd like to mention the next line, which I never noticed before, but he created a safe area for himself. I'm talking about the stones, which I never noticed before, but he created a bed surrounded by stones, and that's a snake barrier. So that's what you're taught to. You are taught to do that when you're in the field, to put stones around the area to prevent critters and snakes from getting in while you're asleep. So he created a safe room for himself to sleep within, which I never noticed before. But psychologically, I would think that's important, that he's in this depression and creates the safe area for himself in there. And I wonder if he knew he was doing that or not.
By the way, Herb, my friends who are the Israeli Native American shamans who go to the desert on quests, what they do is that they go and they create themselves like a little I don't know, like a little, it's almost like a
Container?
bed or a container or almost like a deathbed, so to speak. They like put themselves in the wilderness in such a thing, and then they just stay there for 2 weeks until they start getting the vision.
Really?
Fasting,
Oh,
fasting,
that's-
fasting, and they learned that technique from Native Americans from this country, not from Israel. So possibly that thing that you're telling has more connotation. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Herb. Any last comment?
In Alcoholics Anonymous, they say you can't get better until you hit rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So, before, so there's despair here, but then work your way up.
Yeah. So possibly that is one of the. So we're seeing here that there possibly the way to that positive nothingness that you're talking about possibly goes through rock bottom if we're AA people.
Yeah.
Right? Did you want to say something?
Judaism, a lot of revelations have happened in the wilderness, in the place of emptiness.
Mm-hmm.
Able to receive something in the state of emptiness.
Correct. By the way, even for the whole people of Israel, they had to go to Mount Sinai, to the desert, to receive the Torah. But many prophets, such as Moses and Elijah and many others, right? And when they were going to go to get some message, some vision, either willingly or unwillingly, whether or not they intended it or God intended for them, you have to go to the wilderness. Sometimes you have to fast. Sometimes you have to do a lot of things. So what are we doing here in town? In other words, let's go to the wilderness. Let's go to the wilderness, right? So yeah, all right. So this is kind of like the first step. We're still in the kind of like the exposition of it all, right? Hopefully to be continued, exactly. So hopefully by next week we'll delve a little deeper, maybe even begin with a Zoharic text that takes all this into account and then adding a whole other layer to this stuff. Okay? All right, Mazel Tov. Drive safely. It's slippery out there, right? Don't go into nothingness yet. We want you to come back here next week.
Back in my college days when I was studying philosophy, don't ask me which philosopher it was. We started with the tabula rasa, the empty